Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start today with a sentence that actually made me stop reading and just stare at the wall for a second.
Oh, yeah.
It's from the source material we're diving into, and it goes like this. Your savings are being murdered by the invisible hand of the state.
It's a jarring opening, isn't it?
Yeah.
It immediately sets the stakes. I mean, we aren't just talking about inflation or interest rates in some, abstract way. We are talking about survival.
Exactly. And honestly, usually when we cover economic reports, they're dry.
Right. Q3 outlooks.
Crisis points, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But this is different. It's a report from a global economic channel called Asset Move, and it's written by someone who calls themselves a strategic asset designer.
The title alone suggests a pretty big shift in perspective.
Right. And the tone is so specific. It's cold. It's data-driven. It feels less like an investment newsletter and, more like a survival guide for a collapsing empire. The source calls it a strategic red flavor. Very intense, very urgent. It feels like they're grabbing you by the shoulders and shaking you.
It certainly doesn't pull any punches. And what makes this deep dive so fascinating is that it bridges this massive gap in history.
Huge gap.
It takes a 2,700-year-old economic theory from ancient China, specifically from a man named Guan Zhong, and it pits it directly against the modern central banking system.
Which sounds like a stretch at first, doesn't it? I mean, ancient China and the Federal Reserve.
It does.
But the mission of this source is to prove that what we're seeing today with Bitcoin isn't actually some new invention. The argument is that Bitcoin is a historical restoration.
A restoration.
That it's bringing back these ancient laws of money that we've basically broken.
Mm-hmm.
So we have ancient Chinese philosophy, modern money printing, and cryptocurrency all mixed into one. Where do we even start with this?
We have to start with the architect. We have to go back to the spring and autumn period of China, about 2,700 years ago, to the state of Qi. This is where we meet Guan Zhong. He wasn't just a politician, he was the chancellor. And the source argues he conducted humanity's most sophisticated economic experiment.
And his big idea was this concept of Qinzhang. Now, directly translated, it just means light and heavy. That sounds philosophical, almost poetic.
It does.
But he meant it literally, didn't he?
He did. Kings is light, Zhong is heavy.
Yep.
But in economic terms, Guan Zhong was describing the relationship between money and goods. It's basically the original supply and demand, but with a specific mechanic.
Okay, so break that down.
The theory is simple. When money is abundant in the system, when there's too much of it, it becomes light.
Right.
Its value falls. And because the money is light, the goods become relatively heavy, which just means prices rise.
Okay, so essentially inflation. If everyone has $1 million, a loaf of bread is going to cost $100,000.
Precisely. And the other way around, when money is scarce, it becomes heavy. It has weight. It has real purchasing power. And because of that, goods become light or cheap. Guan Zhong's big insight was that a ruler, what he called a wise monarch, has to regulate this balance. You don't just let the market run wild. The state actively manages the weight of money to keep society stable.
But here's where it gets a little dark. The source mentions this policy called Guan Shanhai, or the State Management of Mountains and Seas.
Yes.
This was his way of taxing people, but the way he did it, it wasn't just, pay me 10%.
No, and this is crucial for the whole argument. Guan Zhong realized a fundamental truth about human psychology. If you walk up to a peasant and demand 30% of their crop as a tax, they get angry.
They grab pitchforks.
It feels oppressive because they can see the theft happening right in front of them.
Right. It's a direct confrontation. Give me your stuff.
Exactly. So instead, Guan Zhong monopolized salt and iron.
Survival necessities.
Absolute necessities. Everyone needs salt to live. Everyone needs iron for farming, for tools. By controlling the supply and just adding a markup, the state collected revenue every single time someone bought salt.
And people just thought prices were high.
They paid the tax without feeling the pain of taxation.
That is, wow. I mean, it's kind of evil, but it's brilliant. It's a psychological magic trick.
It is.
If the government comes to your door, you blame the king. But if the price of salt just goes up, you don't blame the king. You blame the weather, the merchant, bad luck, whatever.
You pay the tax, but the state avoids the rebellion. It transforms political oppression into just, economic reality. Source calls it non-taxation.
A way to subordinate people economically without ever using force.
And speaking of subordination, this is where it gets really interesting and honestly kind of scary. Guan Zhong didn't just use this on his own people.
He used it as a weapon.
as a weapon against other countries.
The economic warfare section. I have to admit, reading this part gave me chills because it felt so modern. This is like the prototype of what we call a rug pull today.
Or a pump and dump?
The Lu silk trap. Okay, so let's set the scene. You have the neighboring state of Lu, right? And they make this very specific kind of silk. Guan Zhong goes to his own monarch in Qi and says, start wearing Lu silk, only Lu silk.
And he creates a trend. He tells the people of Qi to buy it at ridiculously high prices. Suddenly, the demand for Lu silk just skyrockets. The price becomes heavy.
And the farmers in Luce look at this and think, wait a minute, why are we farming grain? Grain is hard work and it pays nothing. We can make 10 times as much weaving silk.
So they stop.
They stop growing food. They turn their entire economy into a silk factory to feed this new demand from Qi. For them, it probably seems like a golden age.
They became completely economically dependent. They chased that heavy price.
Yeah.
And once that dependency was total, once Lu had stopped producing its own food, Guan Zhong sprang the trap.
He banned imports of Lu silk. He just closed the borders. Just overnight.
Overnight, the price of silk, the only thing Lu had plummeted, it became light instantly. Just worthless cloth.
But they had no food.
Because they hadn't grown any grain, there's no food. The price of grain in Luvo went through the roof. They had these piles of worthless silk and citizens who were starving.
And they had to surrender.
They had to surrender to Qi without a single arrow being fired.
It's economic conquest. The source also mentions a similar trick with fox furs, right? Using it as a distraction.
Right, but the takeaway here is what the source calls the lesson of the heavy money.
Which is?
The lesson is, he who holds the power to regulate the weight of money rules the world. If you lose control of your kingdom, if you let an outside force determine the value of your labor, you are conquered.
So the people of Lu were destroyed because they stored their wealth in something the state of Qi could manipulate at will. They held light money.
Exactly.
And this is where the source just grabs you by the collar. It argues that we are the people of Lu right now. Except we aren't holding silk. We're holding dollars, euros, and won.
This is the shift. This is where the Asset Move report moves from history to a data-driven shock. They argue we have entered the era of light money, where all the boundaries have just vanished.
And they point to the M2 money supply. That's basically all the cash and checking deposits in the system.
It is.
And I want to be clear why this matters to the person listening right now, maybe driving to work. The numbers here are, they're just staggering. In 1959, the U.S. M2 money supply was about $28.6 billion.
Okay.
Today, or specifically looking at the projection for late 2025, it's over $22 trillion.
Yeah. It's the slope of the curve that really matters. The source highlights February 2021, noting a 26.7% growth rate in just 1 year.
1 year.
That is an unprecedented lightening of the currency.
But wait, usually when we hear money supply increase, people just think, oh, the government printed money. Why is this a crisis?
Because when you print that much that quickly, the money in your pocket must lose weight. Think about it.
Right,
if the money supply doubles, but the amount of stuff to buy stays the same, prices have to go up. But here's the kicker. Your salary didn't double.
Right. My paycheck stayed exactly the same.
So if the money supply expands by 26% and your wage stays flat, you didn't just stay still, you effectively got a massive pay cut. The source calls this the invisible theft of your time.
And it connects this directly to asset prices.
Yes. The stock market going up, real estate going up. It's not that those things are becoming more valuable. It's that the money you use to measure them is becoming worthless.
It's dilution. Pure and simple. And the report breaks this down with some specific regional focus that I think is really important. Let's look at South Korea first. The source calls it the silent robbery and talks about asset anxiety.
This is a huge issue in Seoul right now. The narrative here is that surging real estate costs aren't a sign of a booming economy, but a form of non-taxation, just like Guan Zhong's salt monopoly.
Taxed without a bill.
Exactly. If you are a young person in Korea working hard, saving your salary, but the price of an apartment keeps doubling because the currency is losing weight, your labor is evaporating.
You're just running on a treadmill that's speeding up.
The state isn't taxing your income directly to pay for its debts. It's devaluing your savings to pay for them.
That hits hard. It's that feeling of, I'm working harder than my parents did, but I'm poor. And then for the U.S. audience, the source focuses on something called the Cantillon effect.
Right.
Now, this sounds technical, but the source describes it as a liquidity pipeline.
It is the mechanism of unfairness. Think of it like pouring honey.
Honey. Okay, explain that.
Yes. Imagine you pour a massive pot of honey, that's the new money, into the middle of a table. The people sitting right there in the middle, the central banks, the government, the massive hedge funds, they get covered in it.
They get it first.
They can scoop it up and spend it immediately while it's still fresh and valuable.
Yeah.
But honey is sticky and slow.
Ah, I see where this is going.
By the time that money spreads to the edge of the table where you and I are sitting, the wage earners, the small business owners, it's thin, it's diluted. And crucially, while we were waiting for it to trickle down, the people in the middle already spent it, driving up the prices of everything.
So the rich get the money at today's value, buy up the assets, drive up the prices, and by the time the money gets to me, everything is more expensive.
Exactly. The source describes the 1971 decoupling, when the U.S. went off the gold standard, as the day the chain snapped.
Wow.
The dollar stopped being a store of value and became a tool for economic subordination. We moved from a system of heavy money anchored in gold to light money anchored in nothing but political promises.
And this is the bridge. This is where the source pivots. We have this ancient problem-greedy rulers making money light to tax us without us knowing, and we have the modern crisis.
The exact same thing on a digital scale.
And the source says the solution isn't to find a better politician, it's to remove the human element entirely.
This is the core argument for Bitcoin in this report. And I want to emphasize, it positions Satoshi Nakamoto not as an inventor of some cool new tech, but as a restorer.
A restorer.
The idea is that humans are fallible. Even a wise monarch, as Guan Zhong wanted, eventually dies or gets greedy. So you need an algorithmic sovereign.
The 21 Guardians. The source breaks down Bitcoin's code into these 3 technical authorities that map back to Guan Zhong's laws. Let's go through them, because this is where the history versus tech argument really clicks.
Okay.
The first one is the difficulty adjustment.
This is the automated wise monarch. Remember how Guan Zhong said you have to regulate supply to keep the balance?
Right.
Bitcoin does this automatically every 2016 blocks, or roughly every 2 weeks.
How does that work? I mean, how can code regulate the market?
Think of it like a gold rush. Usually in the physical world, if someone finds gold in a mountain, thousands of people rush there with pickaxes.
Sure.
They strip the mountain bare in a week. Gold floods the market, and the price crashes.
Supply goes up, price goes down, basic economics.
But in Bitcoin, the mountain reacts. If thousands of miners show up with supercomputers, the protocol literally notices. It makes the rock harder to break. It adjusts the difficulty upward, making it 20%, 50% harder to find the next block.
So it fights back.
It balances. It ensures that no matter how much energy or greed is thrown at the network, the flow of new Bitcoin remains exactly the same. It maintains that King-Zong balance mathematically without a central bank meeting or a vote.
That's kind of wild when you visualize it.
Yeah.
A self-defending monetary policy. Okay, the second authority is proof of work.
Right.
The source compares this to the salt and iron monopolies.
This is all about unforgeable costliness. Fiat currency paper money is printed out of thin air. It costs the Federal Reserve basically $0 to type an extra 0 on a computer screen.
It's weightless.
It is weightless,
Right.
but Bitcoin requires energy. It is a thermochemical process. You have to burn real-world energy to create the digital asset. Just like you had to mine the iron or harvest the salt in ancient Qi,
They call it an economic battery.
because it anchors the digital value to the physical laws of thermodynamics. You can't cheat physics. To get the coin, you must pay the energy cost. That gives money weight. It prevents the state from just printing more to steal your value.
And finally, the third authority, and probably the most famous one, the 21 million cap. The immortal denominator.
This is the ultimate shield against the light money regime. In the fiat system, the supply of money is an infinite denominator. It can always expand, so your slice of the pie always gets smaller.
But in Bitcoin, the supply is fixed. 21 million, that's it.
That's it.
So as the economy grows, as productivity increases, what happens?
If the denominator is fixed and the economy grows, the value of each unit must get heavier. It completely reverses the entire logic of modern economics.
Instead of constant dilution, where you work harder just to stay in the same place, you have concentration of value.
It stops the silent robbery. The source paints this really vivid picture at the end. It describes Guan Zhong standing in this mythic tech noir room. He's holding his ancient bamboo slips, but he's watching holographic hash rate data.
That's a powerful image. The convergence of ancient wisdom and future tech. It really reframes the whole crypto conversation, doesn't it?
It does.
It's not about to the moon or Lamborghini memes. It's about 2,700 years of history.
It invokes the Lindy effect. The idea that if an idea has survived for 2,700 years, like Guan Zhong's theory of supply and demand, it's likely to survive for another 2,700.
Right.
It suggests these aren't just temporary market trends, they are natural laws. And we've spent the last 50 years trying to break those laws with fiat money.
And the report frames this as a final ultimatum. It says, choose the mercy of human greed or the immutability of the algorithm.
That is the crux of the entire argument. The source is telling you that you cannot rely on the wise monarch anymore. The incentives are broken. The central banks are trapped. They have to print to keep the system floating.
So there's no way out inside the system.
The only way to exit that system, to escape the light money regime and the fate of the Lu farmers, is to move your wealth into something that cannot be diluted.
They call Bitcoin the digital restoration of physical value. It's heavy money for the digital age.
And specifically, it protects you from that non-taxation. If you hold an asset that the state cannot dilute, you are opting out of the robbery. You are reclaiming your time.
It's intense stuff. It really makes you look at your bank account differently. It's not just numbers on a screen. It's a battlefield.
It is. It moves the conversation away from investment and towards sovereignty. It's about who controls the weight of the value you create. Is you, or is it a central planner?
Guan Zhong knew.
He knew 2,700 years ago that whoever controls that weight controls the world. Bitcoin just automates that control and gives it back to everyone.
Which brings us to the final thought the source leaves us with. And I think this is something for everyone listening to really chew on. We often think of history as just stuff that happened, museums and old books. But the report asks, if you think history is just for the past, have you already lost the war for your future wealth?
It's a chilling question. It implies that if you don't understand these ancient cycles, the cycle of light and heavy money, you are destined to be the victim of them.
A reminder that in a world of infinite printing, maybe the only safety is a fixed denominator. That's all for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.